Welcome to Coffee with JW, hosted by Nigel from the Gentlemen's Council at Zimworks. And the main goal of this is to have an insight in JW's life and how the kingdom and Jesus Christ has impacted him in comparison to the business world. Welcome, JW.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All
Thanks
right.
for having an amazing council here because I think it's important for men to really get together. As iron sharpens iron, right?
True, that's true.
Oh, all right. It was right here. As iron sharpens iron. We got it right behind us.
That's true. So we'll just get right into it, JW. We're going to take it way back where you started your first business at 12, selling Pop Rocks. Would you want to tell us something about that, how it gave you lessons that you then implemented now?
Well, I would probably say it wasn't that I thought I was going to, 45 years later or whatever, I was going to be in the insourcing business in Africa. That was never the thought, right? It was out of necessity. I looked up, came from a very, very, poor family. We were below the poverty line, but I would go to school. This was junior high, what we call junior high, so the seventh grade. I'm probably 12, 13 years old, and Pop Rocks came out, and you know Pop Rocks. You put them in your mouth, and they pop all over your mouth. Everybody loved them, and so we weren't supposed to have candy at school, right? But I remember I went to the store with my sister, and you could buy these Pop Rocks if you bought them in a big case, like where there was probably 40 packs. You could buy them for about a nickel a pack, right? Well, I thought, wow, that's pretty cheap. And so I took some, and somebody said, "Where'd you get all the Pop Rocks?" And I said, "Oh, I've got a few more." And I said, "How much? Well, let me have one." I said, "Well, I'll sell you one." They're a quarter. And so I sold out. And what happened is I started doing that on a regular basis until the principal came down from the school, and he said, "No, you can't do that." So that was kind of my first taste of being a small entrepreneur and realizing that, hey, you do control your own destiny, right? I was able to use that to make a little money, to have a little spending money in my pocket, and so it's important that was kind of the first lesson that I had.
All right, that's great. Entrepreneur since the age of 12. All right, so it then brings me to the next question. Obviously, along the way, you had some mentorship. People out there would like to know, who was your mentor and how did he impact you into being the JW we know today?
Well, I mean, my father was a very influential person in my life, but my mom and dad divorced when I was 5. My dad moved 1,000 miles, or 1,500 kilometers away from where we lived. And so I saw him in the summer, and then I saw him at Christmas. And this was when I was 5 years old. There was a lot of really influential people across my lifespan. I think the most influential people are teachers, right? Because you really end up spending more time at the school than you did even at home. Because my mom worked. We came home at 3:30 in the afternoon. She came home at 5:30 or 6. We probably spent 3 or 4 hours, maybe 3 hours in the evening. So it was those teachers that had the most amazing impact. But the person, I had a lot of coaches, had a lot of teachers. I had some amazing uncles who were male role models in my life. Super important when you're from a separated family, divorced family. We were the only separated family of my mom's 3 sisters that we didn't have a male figure, father in the home. It was a little unusual in 1970 to get divorced, right? It was not looked upon favorably, as it's probably way too easy now. But the most influential was in high school. I had a high school football coach, not soccer, but American football. And his name was Joe Bob Tyler, Coach Tyler. He really instilled upon me the value of character, of resilience, of endurance, of how you treated other people. And so I would have to say, well, I've had many great pastors and youth pastors that I've known and relatives. Coach Joe Bob Tyler was definitely an influence on me. He was actually, in World War II, was actually in the Bataan Death March, so he was a prisoner of war, POW, actually escaped, went across enemy lines. And his stories, when you realize what he did, inspired me. So that goes all the way back now, but a number of years ago, and he still is one of those role models for sure. And he was a solid believer as well. So he intertwined that into his coaching philosophy.
All right, and I take it you're also a believer. Whenever you speak about the kingdom of God and how you want to impact people's lives. What challenges have you faced in the corporate world that challenge your faith or your principles, and what can you say you would have done differently?
Well, I don't know if I would do anything different. I mean, we all, I've really never worked for anybody since a young age. I was always doing something entrepreneurial, trying to start a business. Again, a lot of failures. I failed in a lot of businesses, more failures than successes for sure. But today, where we stand today, well, let me back up. I think people in their lives, they want to compartmentalize, right? I go to church, let's bring Jesus to church. I go to Bible study, let's bring Jesus to that. I go to the gentleman's council, let's bring Jesus to that. But wait a minute, I'm going to go to work. Nah, let's put Jesus on a shelf, right? Can't bring him into the workplace. Or I'm going to go with my friends. We might do a little drinking. We might go hang out. We might ogle at some women. If you're single, that's okay. But I'm going to leave Jesus at home during that time. What's important is that you figure out how he's the center, right? Now, I don't have to beat people over the head about Jesus. I don't think that's important. I have to show that through my kindness, my love, the way I treat people, the way I talk, and then that permeates into all areas. Then it permeates into your marriage, how you raise your kids, how you socialize, your work life, your new friends you meet, and then in the corporate world. So you have a choice, right? You have a choice to do that, and you just have to make the choice that that's going to be the center point of your life, as well as you're going to put him first among everything as well.
I think so far you have been so strong with your beliefs. But I will digress a little bit, since this is Coffee with JW. What's the best coffee you've had, and from which country?
Ooh, the best coffee. Well, I'll have to say I have not. I was just in Vic Falls last week, and there is a roaster there, and we are trying to get some Zimbabwe coffee, even to our grind here in Harare. Costa Rica. I mean, Costa Rica coffee is great. I've had coffee from Kenya and Tanzania and a few other places, but man, the coffee from Costa Rica, it's not very acidic, and so this coffee's good, but that coffee's amazing. I'd have to say that ranks at the highest.
Perfect. All right. So the whole point of this was to then inspire people out there. What are the last words that you have for somebody out there sitting, watching this, that will say, JW said this and I copied him, that will get them to a level of success that you're at?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll give a long answer.
It's fine.
I'm good with long answers. But the first thing I would say, and I'm gonna use this the front, and remind me not to forget it at the beginning. People want to do what you do, but they don't want to do what you've done. Okay? And think about that. They want to do what you do now, but they don't want to do what you've done. So, first of all, when I look at the entrepreneurial journey, I have been officially bankrupt once. I have been officially broke 2 other times. And that's part of my journey, right? There were many times in there that I would cry out to God, why, until I really came across the book of James in 1 verse 2. It says, I count it pure joy when I go through various trials, knowing the testing of my soul produces endurance. And when endurance has its full measure, then I can achieve this perfection. And so I stumbled upon that verse. I'm going way back to the early 2000s, even on into 2008. There was some really tumultuous years there. And I began to say, God's teaching me something, right? And I have to figure out what he's teaching me. And so I fast forward on to today, and we've had some success in business. We're growing. And I want to reiterate, my mom was single mom, 4 kids at home, had a very minimal wage job, and we were below the poverty line. We just didn't have anything. You know, we got 1 pair of shoes when school started. They lasted you for the year. We had hand-me-down clothes. My mom got hand-me-down bedspreads and comforters and hand-me-down cars from my grandfather. So if you don't think I've been there, I've done all that, right? I've been there. And then I've been broke in my adult life. I swore when I told my wife we were broke, I thought she was going to leave me, and she stayed. 31 years now, we've been together, and so she stayed. So I want to say that every step of your life is part of your journey. And don't discount what you're learning. When things are going through tough times, when you're going through a bad relationship, when you're going through a financial difficulty, when you're going through a health problem, if you'll turn it around instead of saying, why me, Lord, why me? You say, Lord, what are you trying to teach me here? What are you trying to teach me that's going to help me through my long journey? Because while God doesn't guarantee everybody financial success, right? And I promise you, that's not the most important thing. If I had the success I have today, and my wife had left me somewhere along the way, as an example, I could not consider myself a success because I failed at my marriage, right? So those things that you find you're successful in, your successful relationships. And I also want to point out, Nigel, that I grew, there was a time where I grew up in, my mom, as we say, my mom drugged us, meaning she drugged us to church. And so we didn't want to go every Sunday, but we always went every Sunday. And we cried and we moaned, but she got us together and we made it. But there was a time where I ventured away from the Lord. Probably from the time I was, probably 19 or 20. I went to church occasionally, but I was living my own life. And I had some success in there. In my mid-20s, I was like, whoa, look at me. Man, God just came in and just chopped my legs out from under me and goes, it's not all about you. I control what you're going to do. And so, again, I think the world puts too much emphasis on role models that are not role models. It could be an athlete. It could be a business owner, and you look at, he's driving a Lamborghini or a big nice Land Cruiser or a Prada or a Range Rover, whatever, right? You look at all that, oh, wow, that's success. Those should not be our idols. What we should focus on is Jesus, and let him take us on that journey to where we're going to do. Because I'm going to circle back around to what I said. People love and aspire, look here in Zimbabwe, it's the same thing, right? You see somebody driving a nice car, you see somebody wearing nice shoes or nice clothes or whatever it is, you kind of become envious, right? But I can tell you, every time you reach a level, there's another level. Every time you buy a new house and you think, man, I've reached the epitome. Oh, wow, that house over there is big. I might like to have that house. So it's a never-ending satiation in our soul, in our body that we can't feel. I mean, you can just keep going. Look at these guys buying these big yachts, right? They buy a 60-meter yacht and they want a 90-meter yacht. They get a 90-meter yacht, they want a 100-meter. It's never-ending, right? And so I think you got to learn to be satisfied where you're at. And again, find hope and success in what you've done, in the journey that you're on, because really your life is about the sum total of your experiences. Everything you've happened, all you've learned, that really becomes who you are. And again, I'll circle back to the statement I made earlier, and I really love this, is you want to do what I do, but you don't want to do what I've done. And so I think it's important that people remember that. And if you'll keep Christ-centered and be happy where you're at today, then I think the Lord can take you on to that next step too. Sorry about that. That was a long answer.
That was a perfect answer. So listening to you share, I'm pretty sure everybody listening would see that we resonate with you. You've gone through it all. You've gone through what people are going through now. You're not that person who doesn't understand where people are coming from. I'll just ask you one last question, because I've noticed every time you speak, you quote a verse in the Bible. How often do you read the Bible?
Well, man, that's an embarrassing question sometimes, right? Because I would love to say, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I go to the top of the mountain, and I read the Bible for 3 hours. Well, I do love, if you ever heard Martin Luther's statement, when he said, I have so much to do today, I must get up 2 hours earlier to spend that time with the Lord. So he was saying it's going to help me force my day. I do, right now, I'm in the middle of, I started it in January. Actually, our COO is on it as well, through the YouVerse Bible online. My sister's doing it with us. Nikki Green's doing it with us. We got some people in the organization, just 4 of us. And, my future son-in-law, he's doing it too. And so it's online, so I do it every morning because it's 365 days, and if you get a couple of days behind, you're like, oh wow, I'm 4 days behind. And it's about it takes about 20 minutes. I do get up in the morning. I try not to let social media jump in there at first. Maybe I'll check my emails, check my WhatsApp, because as you know, when I get up in the U.S., I get up early. I'm up at 4:30 every morning, and I think that is that's an important trait. I don't care who you are. If you try to tell me that sleeping late is helpful, it's not. Get up early. I just tell people, I would bet if you did a survey and found that 98% of the people that are successful get up very early. I think that's important. And the reason it is because you need to get a lot of things done before your day gets started. So that's a really long answer to your question. I do the Bible YouVerse app every day, and usually it's about a chapter. We're doing Corinthians right now. And I wouldn't say I'm a really good at memorizing verses. If you'll notice, I use a lot of them over and over. But I think that's okay too. As I don't quote this one a lot. What is it? Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, and I think that's what y'all are doing with the Gentleman's Council, right? But why is it important to memorize verses? I mean, why do you think it's important to memorize verses?
I think if you live by the word in your heart, you can implement it in your life on a daily basis.
And I think it helps you get through certain circumstances, right? You'll notice I don't use profanity. I mean, I might hit my finger with a hammer or something, and I might come out with something. That's very, 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 very rare. But I used to. I used to use filthy language. I was telling you about that time from 21 till I was about 29. It was just off the cuff. But when you read Ephesians 4:29, it says, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only that which builds others up. Which also means you can't say evil words, right? You can't say, I don't think you should say negative things to people. So the reason I use those verses is because I'm a sinner. Stuff comes out of my mouth. Rude stuff comes out of my mouth. But when you know that verse and it's embedded into your heart and you say it, you're immediately like, the Holy Spirit does this. Is that Ephesians 4:29, JW? Oh, man. Hey, Nigel. So sorry. And I can tell you I've had numbers of times I've picked up the phone and called somebody and said, you know what, I realized I said something to you yesterday that was rude, and I wanted to apologize. A lot of times they're like, I don't even remember it. I'm like, well, I do, so I'm sorry. And so could you imagine a world where everybody lived by that verse? Let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only that which builds others up. Just imagine if we lived like that as a world. If we had all these billions of people on earth who were doing that, it'd change everything, wouldn't it? Change the way. But we're fallen, we're sinful, so we get it.
It would. I think that is $1 million advice for free. We wouldn't have gotten it anywhere else. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for sharing so much. I think that is more than treasure. That is more than treasure of gold. I hope and pray that those that are watching out there, they would take your lessons, implement them in their lives, and someday they can say, we got this from J.W. Oliver, which then takes it to what you are working toward, having an impact in the world for the kingdom.
Yeah, and if I could leave with 2 things, and these are simple things, right? This is something that every single person watching this, listening to this can do. Forget about getting good business skills or being a great entrepreneur or being a great businessman or being physically fit. Take all those things. I would say if Craig Groeschel, in his leadership podcast, he talks about habits. And he says the big problem with habits is people try to do too much at one time. Like they wake up in January, my New Year's resolution, I'm going to do these 25 things, right? Well, it ain't going to happen because you're not going to change your spots like that, right? But he said, take one thing. And he used the example, I love this example. Craig said his first one he said he wanted to floss his teeth every morning because the dentist told him he needed to be flossing his teeth. So he said, all right. So the first year he said, I flossed my teeth. He said, because I was not a good flosser. He said, today, that was 20 years ago, I floss every day. And he also said, I now have 20 new habits. I do one a year. And he goes, so here I am, 20 years later with 20 new habits. I would give you an advice. I would give everybody this advice, and I'm really passionate about this. If you're really serious about being successful, if you're really serious about being successful in your marriage, in your life, but more importantly, in your spiritual life, two things. Get up early and pray. And I'm not talking about getting on your knees and trying to come up with a 30-minute prayer or even a 5-minute prayer. Prayers can be 30 seconds. The Lord hears everyone. But I don't think if you're going to lay around 30 minutes before you need to be at work, let's say you need to be at work at 8 a.m., if you're going to sleep till 7:25, jump up, take a shower, put your clothes on, race to work, hope you're on time, you're going to have a problem. So I would highly encourage and recommend that you get up early. And then secondly, take 2 minutes, take 3 minutes, take 5 minutes and pray. And when you pray, don't start by naming all the things you need. Start by being gracious, being gratitude. Lord, thank you for my day. Thank you that I'm alive. Thank you for my breathing. Thank you for my home. Thank you for my family. Thank you for my kids. You start there, it's hard not to have a good day.
I think we've had it all. We hope we can have another session like this because I feel like this time was too short for you to give us everything. I see a lot of knowledge coming from you. There's so much that we can learn, and we're so appreciative for having this opportunity. Thank you so much, JW. And
thanks for having me. This is great. I love this. I love to invest in other people.
All right. And just to end it on a bombshell, wake up early in the morning and pray before you do anything else. That's it from me, Nigel, and the Gentlemen's Council, and from JW. Until next time.